Surprise finals. In the bottom left for Basilisk is Reynor. In the top right of Crimson Quartz, we do have Team Liquid SKillous. SKillous with the big upset. He was 0-14 against Max Pax, who was here today, who did play. Was playing fine. Up against someone he had defeated 14 times. Best of 3, best of 5 series. And lost to him. SKillous finally able to get that win. Now facing Reynor, who I believe he is in a similar underdog status, but I'd be surprised if it was a similar type of win streak. Yeah, so SKillous actually most recently did win against Reynor, so that was 4 months ago. Before that, there was a 6-series loss streak. Reynor 0-2, 0-2, 0-2, 0-2, 0-3, 1-3. For that, SKillous had a little bit. Before that, I mean, overall, Reynor is the better player. But I think what happens is, well, not only is SKillous also a very good player. Oh, and by the way, this is a very harsh first map to be going on. But then I think the times at which they both are feeling comfortable and at their maximum power is very different. Reynor hasn't felt like a max power Reynor in a while, and then particularly when it comes to this matchup, I think he was having a lot of trouble with it, having the same results as he did over a year ago. A lot because of the patch, perhaps. Protoss players generally getting better. And then SKillous is a guy who, you know, unfortunately, he's sometimes not very stable. You know, you sometimes get this really amazing SKillous who is playing like the Europe's best Protoss. And then you get, kind of like, oh, disappointing results SKillous, which, you know, he then proceeds to beat himself up for a lot. He's his own worst critic for sure. So it's like, I feel like that's more about who matches up and who wins than an actual direct, this skill level number is attributed to Reynor, this skill number is attributed to SKillous, and SKillous is less. Like, I don't think it's that direct. And, at least the evidence, at the very least, the evidence does point to SKillous getting a little bit better against Reynor most recently. But again, the last time they played was actually 4 months ago. The Reynor doesn't participate in a lot of the open cups. When he does, he is on the opposite side of the bracket to SKillous, I guess. And then it's rare for this finals not to be Clem versus Max Pax. First Adept harass is not going to go very well. That Adept is going to die. Ah, yeah. I actually wonder if it wouldn't have if it kept on running, but... So this is a very brutal map. So before things get moving and shaking, because it might very quickly, SKillous lets this map through in a best of 5, where there's 9 maps. You know, you have some time to... You have some that you can veto. But, he must know that he needs to be primarily worried about this exact setup. He must know. When the third base, the natural, is taken in that forward position, the Zerg player is really just, like, peacocking. Like, there could not be a more obvious sign that they are going to attack you. I guess isn't peacocking, but still, like, they're, you know, it's like that dinosaur doesn't actually exist in Jurassic Park. Their things are flared out, and they're about to strike you with some paralysis goo. Which sounds very Zergy. Those 5 drones killed, though. So, SKillous seems to be primarily worried about the paralysis goo that's going to hit him whenever Reynor decides to do the all-in, because that's 90% of the time what's going to happen when the setup is like this, when that base is out in the forward position. But I like SKillous doing, you know, maybe a little miss micro on his first Adept, but I actually don't think it's bad at all to him to sacrifice Adepts for drones. I mean, sacrificing an Oracle would be different, which you should never do, I guess, but... I do like that he did dive that second time and he killed 5 drones, because any amount of drones that Reynor has to replace does make his attack, or doesn't replace, either way, makes his attack less good. That Oracle barely died. Didn't die. SKillous then also took the vertical third base as opposed to the other 2 options, which is either this base out in the front, go mano-a-mano in the midfield, or the triangle base. He instead takes this space off to the right side, which is inaccessible to Reynor unless he breaks the rocks or mines out his own minerals. So that's going to protect the third, basically. Basically, no matter what. If this is a queen drop or something, then that's a different story. But this base is pretty protected. And then the only base that Skillous to worry about is the natural, which, you know, if there was an attack on the way, which so far is not the case, and the oracles are constantly checking. Wow, golden moment right there. Perfect timing with the queens moving out to creep spread and the spore not quite being done. If you knew they were going to attack you, yeah, then shield batteries. Exactly what is happening here. He sees queens out where they shouldn't be and is like, oh, what are you doing? And that's actually funny because this isn't an attack, but it's 100% the first sign of an attack, so you should always over-defend in this case. Because I think worst case scenario is that they don't, and you're like, oh, but I've been doing a really good job harassing you. Like, these shield batteries aren't the most expensive thing. It's one shield battery and additional pylons. Like, that is useful for later. So not even barely even a reaction, honestly. Like, they might have all been planted at the same time, but certainly not an overreaction. Even though it did not end up being the attack. Reynor is continuing to drone. He has gone up to a lair for his Hydralisk and his +1 missile. I would go ahead and throw out that Reynor probably wanted to do the attack if two things had occurred. One, less drones died, and two, Skillous took a different third nexus. I think if both those things happen, 100% he goes for the attack, and if one or the other happens, then I don't know what he chooses. But now we got Skillous in a 3-base prime Blink Stalker setup with +1 about 20 seconds away from finishing, clearing up that creep spread that, you know, is probably not likely to be alive very long anyway. But if this was allowed to stay up, then the Ling Hydra army later on would have an even faster path to Skillous. Instead, now Skillous is the one controlling the midpoint and actually really causing problems for Reynor here. Very few defenses for these glass cannon Hydras. The Queens providing a minimal amount. +1 missile almost done for the Zerg, but not quite. The Stalkers taking advantage while they've got it. They just see that their numbers are better. Drones are forced to be pulled into this. We need the bodies to protect those Hydras. Where the hell are the Lings? More Stalkers coming from the third or the natural. Maybe they slow warped out of the 4th base. Either way, not fast enough to really win the game here, but Skillous at a higher supply against Reynor in a PvZ. Mass Gateway versus Ling Hydra. Yeah, you know, maybe with Mass Gateway it is going to be a little closer on that supply, but it's still not a good sign. Reynor is struggling. He's lost 16 drones. Now with the defense of the potentially final moment. He does successfully defend, but is now on 4 bases, 62 drones. Rich Vespian Geysers helping a little bit, but this is not enough. It's not enough, and so that's why more drones are on the way. Warp Prism was created and actually got rallied off to the right side, where obviously the intent is to hit that main base. Reynor going for a hive right now, but it's really not that impressive. He's under so much pressure. 8.5-minute hive, like, okay, fine. But what else you got? And sometimes that's a fully maxed out army. Sometimes it's this, which isn't maxed out, but is prepared to take the battle. Storm was not done. Skillous overstayed his welcome. He thought the main was easy peasy his. Reynor had actually snuck Hydras off to the right side to not just attack into him, but kind of surprise, collapse. Skillous was not prepared for that, so he loses a lot of gateway units. But even with that moment, we still have Skillous up in supply. Zealot's also doing some amount of damage. Maybe not the most impressive amounts, but while Skillous is still attacking on the front lines, it is... I was going to say better than nothing, but it's better than that. Also, the Warp Prism dies. No! And then, actually, you could easily argue 8 Zealots, 4 in the main, 4 in the third, is not worth 6 drones. 800 for 300? But the distraction was there, and Skillous is using that to once again position himself in the middle, where this time around is going to be a lot better set up to defend against these surrounds. If he had Storm, that's at least a trade. He was still blindsided, he was still surprised, but if he had Storm, this was something he could have covered. Now that he has Storm and Oracles with their stasis traps and Revelation, because you did hear Lurkers just burrow right there. You know, Skillous can hold on to this position. Oh, hold position Lurkers! Hold position Lurkers! Oh my god, the hold position Lurkers. But I think this Observer actually sees the Lurker. No, it doesn't. That's perfectly out of position. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. This could be a disaster. Oh my god. But if a Revelation goes off on the army, which seems really likely, Skillous could easily throw down a Revelation just to be like, oh, where's the army? And then inadvertently see the Lurkers. Can you... I mean, I want SKillous to, you know, get a couple of good victories here, but can you just walk into the lurkers and get completely bodied? Because I think that'd be really cool for my highlight reel. No! No! He's seen it. He's seen it. He sees them. He sees them. No longer necessary to hold position. Once he unlocked all of the lurkers, you could see how much damage they did. Damn! That would have been... That was almost so cool. And SKillous just I mean, I wonder if he did know there was lurkers there. He might have heard them. He might have seen a glimpse of them. He might have anticipated them. No, I mean, I think he just coincidentally was like, this angle is no longer important. Because he was, you know, harassing into them and they were in hold position. All right, we got the minerals mined out on Reynor's side of the map. No, rocks are broken. That's what happened. And so the attack on SKillous' third finally underway. Into the natural we go as well. Two immortals would rather derp out than help there. Uh-oh. This is Reynor's time to shine. He has now successfully put SKillous into a very awkward position. SKillous is all about controlling the midpoint, the only attack point, really, that existed past tense prior to the rocks being broken down. Now with all the hubbub, we got SKillous with a complicated situation. He not only is struggling to defend, he's struggling to even find all the freaking lurkers. More lurkers coming up here in the same position. Mama ship comes in. When the hell was that made? Cloak activated, and that will push back the lurkers, who obviously can't shoot up either, so that would be a big problem. And SKillous does avoid, one, losing his third base, which I thought was a goner for sure. Surprised by that. And then two, he really stops that from getting out of control, because that could have easily just been a big old dropped on my limes moment. He could have panicked as he saw his third base under fire, run his army into the lurkers without paying attention, missed revelations on 3 or 4 lurkers at a time, and taken a battle haphazardly. His mothership timing could have been way worse, and then he still would have lost that base at the very least. Although losing 1 Nexus when SKillous has 5 wouldn't have been a deal breaker. But then lurkers maybe also get into the natural, and then lings into the third and the fourth. Like, that thing, it can get crazy so fast. That SKillous stops it from getting crazy. Reynor, I think, had his power spike, and now it's starting to dissipate a little bit, just because you now know what the plan is, what the play is from the Zerg player a little more. You do have some static defense, although this little low ground situation is a bother. And SKillous has kept a lot of his important units alive. 8 Immortals, 5 High Templars, Mothership as well. Speaking of Mothership, I wonder where that recall went to. It was into the main base of Reynor. Reynor responds quickly with his own lurkers, however, already burrowed. And while there is an observer, it wasn't in position. Those lurkers going to hold the line at least into the natural. The hive might be a goner, however. And, you know, you still want a hive. Very expensive, very slow building structure to remake. Back at home, SKillous will evacuate, I think, his newest base. That is his 5th. That is a wise call, because he is killing Reynor's 5th as well as the main base, which doesn't have much mining to do, but is still important. Recall could happen as far as a Nexus recall to save everything here, and Reynor knows that. There's only so much he can do about it. Burrow does come in, and Immortal does go down. Spawning pool apparently was also targeted, my bad, so Zerglings have not been made, and the Zerglings aren't very impressive, to be clear. They don't have adrenal glands. They don't have melee upgrades. Even if they had gotten over to every nook and cranny in that one big attack, I'm not sure it would have been that impressive, but it's still annoying, and they didn't. And then they weren't here to even try to body block for some of the Hydras and Lurkers, of which there are 16 Lurkers, by the way. One Oracle goes down. Second one, thankfully, gets the heads up. We'll get a Revelation cast. Mothership goes for Cloak once more. Overseer is prepared, though, for Reynor. Reynor on one of his last armies, but kind of ditto for SKillous. If he takes a really bad fight, that might be it for him. The Immortal count is still very, very strong. Shields are being popped, but where are the rest of the Lurkers? There's 11 Lurkers, but I only see 2 of them right here, although those 2 are very, very impactful. The 2 are very impactful. The 2 are very impactful. Hello, 2 Lurkers. Hello. Hello. Moshi Mosh. That was 3 Lurkers. My bad. Oracle finally cast their Revelation, but only after every last Immortal on the front line gets killed. 12 in total have fallen. All of the ones on the map, because 3 Lurkers were out of the Revelation, and SKillous didn't recognize. He had the Immortal still alive. Now the Archons are here to try and make up for it, but the Archon's unable to kill the Lurkers fast enough. SKillous, no! I think he actually was supposed to hold that. I don't know about winning, because this was a really down-to-the-wire game, but... Oh my god, he should have had so many more units. He could have just left them there, too. He could have just left. Ow! Uh-huh. Well, somewhat of a disappointing first game ending for one of these parties. Happy. Reynor, though. Thank you, 3 lurkers, for adding that extra damage. Again, it might have already been too far gone. SKillous did lose his probes at that base. The lurkers were hidden, and then he also lost his 5th, but it's still disappointing to see that he lost it to just undetected lurkers. On the top left, successfully navigating a very difficult game, it is Reynor. And the bottom right, we do have SKillous. Reynor does have a way of making comebacks happen, and I don't know if I'd really call that a comeback. I think it was just a very difficult game for both parties that had followed the path, I guess, that you would expect on a map like that. You know, you had Reynor initially, I think, more so threatening that all-in that I was talking about. Then you had SKillous already kind of responding to it just by nature of his placement and his dedication to drone killing. The 3rd Nexus placement as well. Then you had Reynor kind of roll out of it, but really awkwardly. I mean, he was not in a good supply. And he almost died. He almost died to the Blink Stalkers in the middle. Barely holds on. Is still on the ropes, because he still has a non-mining 4th base. Less workers. A very fragile army before the lurkers came out. And SKillous was holding on to the most integral part of the map, the midpoint. But Reynor was some, I'm going to call it big brain moves, but really just fast execution. He just decides, like, okay, what do I do? Okay, do this and this and this and this. And then it caused enough of a problem that he was able to kind of reset the game at the very least. The attack with the lurkers onto the 3rd base clearly surprised SKillous. And no, even before that, the attack with the Hydras on the right side, that's what first made SKillous doubt his positioning in the middle of the map, as he did lose it for a limited amount of time. But then it was the lurkers off to the right that really made it so that SKillous couldn't just control the middle of the map and see everything that was coming and have really an easier game at that point. When Reynor goes for those surrounds or goes for that run by, he just makes it more complicated. It doesn't necessarily take a genius to think of how to react to that, because in the perfect world, you just be like, oh, instantly 30% of my army off to the right, and the rest is going to end. But very difficult to play a perfect game of StarCraft, and being in position is important, which he certainly wasn't. And just collecting all of his forces and getting back into a good position is something that Reynor was really good about stopping. Very few points was SKillous able to just kind of collect his Protoss army and go for it. Even when he Mothership recalled into the main, that wasn't his whole army, which was probably better because he had to also defend back at home. But then just like reiterating how many times SKillous really got to just focus intently on the army. Was the first 8 or 9 minutes of the game, which looked really good for SKillous. And then once he stopped being able to only focus on the army and had to deal with the run-bys and the lurkers and the invisibility factor and whatever, then it just got more complicated. And Reynor played a better complicated game, I suppose. With the help of a little kind of the invisible man situation. Invisible roach thingy, I guess. The burrowed lurkers. 3rd Nexus on the way for SKillous after opening double Oracle. 3rd one is on the way. No big changes here for SKillous. For Reynor, he did make a decent amount of lings, with speed, obviously. Was looking to grab that pylon, perhaps, or at least draw the Oracle back. To be honest, Reynor's early game defense last game was lacking. It started off fantastic. He killed an Adept for basically free, but then the second Adept plus Oracle did catch him. Then there was a moment where that Spore Crawler was just too late. Reynor definitely had a less than ideal foundation for a Zerg player. Oh my god, but it is completely the opposite here. Oracle gets killed. How? I guess that was the weekend one, and it just kind of I guess it just thought to get into the main base. The queens were waiting, though. That's a big problem. SKillous had great Oracle retention last game. Maybe we'll still keep these two alive, because I guess he eventually lost a third one. And then towards the tail end of the game, he lost the second one and the final one as well. And not this early. Ay, ay, ay. Gonna be a lot of creep spread, almost knocking on SKillous's door, actually, before you know it. Reynor adding on an evolution chamber, layers on the way as well. We'll see if that's +1 melee, +1 missile. It is missile. Setting up similar to the last game. All the gas is coming down, too. Ling Hydra. Charge is on the way for SKillous, so not Blink Stalkers. Last game, the map really does play well into how SKillous played it. It was when it became more of the map, when rocks were broken, when more expansions had to be taken farther out, that we started to see a little bit of that wiggle room that Reynor was then able to play with and make a comeback. Yeah, effectively a comeback happen. Yeah. He was in desperate straits at some point in that last game, but this game he's just kicking ass. Jesus, another Oracle dies. That's all 3 Oracles dead? I missed the second one? Oh, no. Well, you know, sometimes this will happen. You'll have a terrible start to the game, but then you pick it up anyway. They'll win. I guess that could still happen, but SKillous, who is probably, like I said, he's his own biggest critic, probably already kicking himself, letting that last game slip away whenever he thought it slipped away. Whether he thought that was the first Hydra's around, the Lurkers bypassing his vision, or the final where he lost all those Immortals. Whatever one it was, I'm sure he's kicking himself over it. And then you get into the next game, telling yourself, don't let it affect you, get over it, just focus on this game. Did he lose your 3 Oracles right off the bat? They did very little. Very little. They didn't even trade out for Pain and Drones, which would still not be excusable. You can only hope the game does get so chaotic so you can stop just thinking about how often you've messed up this game already. Quick reaction with the recall on the Immortal. Love it. Second Immortal, I think, will live. Yeah. There's not a lot helping it, though, so that took a lot of damage. SKillous was seconds away from really having a more appropriate army for just Lings. Was the cutting edge timing right there for Reynor's Lings to actually find that maximum damage. All the gas is coming up for SKillous, who is going to have a very gas-based army eventually. Eventually, we're going to have dozens of Archons and Storms and Immortals and all that good stuff. Reynor, though, is already working his way up to Lurkers, so this time around, no Hive? Yeah, I was going to say, Hive should be way faster. And it absolutely is. Reynor has gotten a far more ideal game in game number 2 here. And now he's got that, just absolutely scary, horrifying position of a Zerg player who has comfortably gotten to Lurkers with their upgrades. That's very scary. That's very scary to me. You know, and there's a different type of fear compared to someone who's turtling, for instance. Then you're just fearing that the game is going to be really boring and you hate your life. But the fear of Lurkers is, if I let them take map control, which has already happened, by the way, I will not ever be in position again. And that's kind of happened. That has kind of happened, guys. These Lurkers already in prime position, attacking into SKillous's third, is horrific. Remember that SKillous also doesn't have any of the Oracles, Revelation, or Stasis Traps, which might have bought some time. His Observer is ready to go, but an Overseer is there to also try and chip at it. So you got to keep the Observer far away, which means that the Lurkers always have, like, the depth of Lurkers matters a lot more. Probes are going down. Warp Prism trying to get some damage done on the other side of the map, but it seems like it's being taken care of very quickly. We got the Digging Claws, or whatever the hell they're called, for the Lurkers also finalizing. The Burrow Speed. Captive Talons! Digging Claws, Drilling Claws. What about Digging Claws? Digging Claws, though. Anyways, and now we're going to have potentially the end of the game. SKillous, he's got all those mortals, all types of bunched up here. One shield battery is helping, but it's Lurkers bunched up almost without their shields. Yeah, all of them without their shields. And the depth of Lurkers, again, is just so annoying. This is not going to entirely clean up the Lurker army. 3 more Lurkers are not as involved as they probably should be. As Zealots come in, Archon leading the charge as well, I guess, protecting the Immortals from having their health continuously drained. And that looked like it was kind of the start of a break. It was really deceiving. The Protoss army still isn't at the size that I think it should be. It certainly doesn't have the movement that it would like. And Reynor is the one who is staying on location, refusing to be dislodged. SKillous tried to circumvent the army to a certain degree with the Warp Prism harassment, but that has just completely stopped. Didn't do nearly enough. Third base has gone down. SKillous is replacing it. He thinks there's a chance that he can play this game out, and there is, I would say. There is a chance. But the honest conclusion is that Reynor's going to win. It'd be more like Reynor has to mess up than SKillous can do anything to really make a comeback happen. SKillous is hoping to survive long enough that his army gets to, you know, at least over 150 supply. It's somewhere close to it now. It's supply blocks. And then you can start to really wonder if Immortal Archon Storm Charge can take on that many Lurkers. Then there's a question, but only if they get really good positioning. So kind of all started with that army just being allowed to get to the 3rd Nexus, in my opinion, which is really weird considering that SKillous initially was on point about defending it. I want to say SKillous has the denim to make a comeback, but as far as I can tell, he still has yet to release that inner power. You know, Reynor has had a lot of chances to show off how much of a comeback kid he is. So many high-profile games in which Reynor has almost made a comeback or successfully did, where he's turned best of series around in his favor. SKillous kind of has the opposite. Not as many high-profile series, but still a lot of games that we get to view of his. And for the most part, it's if he's in a bad mindset or he's already having a bad series, generally doesn't get better. And this is perhaps one of the last true hurdles of SKillous. He plays his best. He's obviously very good, but mentality and the kind of the accessory factors to being a successful pro gamer, I think, still somewhat elude him. I mean, as far as a successful pro gamer, I would call him one. A good team, he's in a good position. Definitely complicated one for his life, but very good player. Missing that kind of X factor, the he'll never lose even if it looks like he's going to lose, like a Cyril has or Reynor used to have. And maybe he doesn't have the killer instinct or the wild goofiness of a hero to just throw in a counter rush. Just to mix it up. Nope, SKillous will probably stay the course, and it'd be up to whether or not he can control his mental. As to whether or not he can reverse the series outcome. Because right now, in the bottom left of Alcyone, Reynor is up 2-0. The top right, we have SKillous. Really good first game. Really good half of the first game. The first half was definitely in SKillous's corner, and then kind of let it go a little bit. The harshest critics might call it a throw. I think that's not correct, but okay. Oh, we're going to have a cannon rush, potentially. Yeah, he definitely saw it. You don't scout like that and not see it. You can cannon rush this. This is something we've learned. And Classic would do it. Hero would do it. I don't believe in heroes cannon rushes, but he could. SKillous is not going to go for it. So generally, from what I understand, the Zerg player knows they've been scouted, not because they saw the probe, but because the probes do bother to scout that. The gold base strategy has occurred often enough, although still rare, that it is scouted. Notably, it wasn't the offensive gold taken, I guess, but it's still a gold. And Absolutely, gold bases first can be used to then just power up an attack. If they aren't, then you still are being outmined by them. So it definitely makes the game tricky, which is one big thing for just cannon rushing this and getting it out of the way. As much as it messes up your own build order to add a cannon in, a forge and a cannon and pylon and all that, at the very least, you kind of nip it in the bud. Maybe the Zerg cancels it and then you waste your resources though, so there's that. But if you don't nip it in the bud, if this does get up and running, then as the Protoss player, you do have the two conclusions here. Either it's hyper aggressive and you got to be worried because they have less drones necessary to still have a good economy to build army, or they are just actually getting a better economy. So then you feel like you have to stop it. But that's sometimes a trap. Sometimes you see players over-dedicate to either harassing or all-inning a gold base taken out in the map. And then they end up losing. Actually, them playing just a normal base, like normal Oracle into third base game, actually would have been better than kind of falling into the trap. It just complicates matters. There's also a chance you decide to two-base Resonating Glaives, let's throw that out there, and then it does work, and then Reynor looks like a fool for trying this. Yeah, I guess that could happen, but with the games already being played out in the way they've gone and just things looking worse for SKillous, I think this is not just a good build for the map when you get away with it. I think it's also just good to kind of get into SKillous's head. This is no doubt a different type of game thanks to that gold, even though it is a build that SKillous has seen before. Style, whatever you want to call it. Evolution Jibber coming down now for Reynor as he grabs overall 3 bases. Third has yet to get any drones on it, but we are building drones. Twilight Council coming out here for SKillous as he grabs 2 Oracles, then Twilight Council. So he is actually prioritizing the Twilight Council. I think you're going to see some Blink Stalker action. I'm not sure he's going to place a Proxy Pylon. I think a Proxy Pylon, maybe even a Proxy Gateway. And then I'm wondering where he would do it. He did mine out the minerals a little bit. Then Reynor broke down his own rocks. He could obviously mine out his own minerals, and then Proxy Pylon up here. Might not be a bad idea. But you're sacrificing that third Oracle for faster Twilight Council, faster Blink. You don't have that Forge that really lends itself to a macro game. You're getting the Gateways instead. Doesn't have to be all in, but it is pressure. And it's really good pressure if you can get a Proxy Gateway up. The Oracles also have another duty here, besides just trying to kill whatever they can find. They also are trying to scout for exactly what Reynor's plan is doing, because again, you don't want to just think because they have a gold base, they're going to macro up to 60 drones and then attack you. There could be something else happening. In this case, there absolutely is not. +1 melee is halfway done. Roachmorn is halfway done. No huge army coming SKillous's way. He's nonetheless prioritized that Blink, so he's not going to have as fast of an upgrade. He is going Blink also, which means that +1 melee, as long as there are enough Lings, are going to be very helpful. Reynor at that lower drone count, and you can see that he's doing okay on the minerals. This is only so much of a difference between the two. Occasionally even winning mineral battle. Power of the gold. But he does need to correctly accommodate for the gold mining out fast. You don't want to be in the midst of a very tense tug of war and suddenly your entire mineral line is gone. Takes the winds right out of your sails. Which is why Reynor is really dedicating to this attack here. He's not going to get Roach speed. He does not have a lair. He is instead just building, building, and building. And this is what those Oracles are trying to figure out. When exactly this attack was coming. And I think he's figured it out, guys. Yeah. He does have a decent amount of army, thanks to consistent warp-ins from those production centers. His Blink has been active for a while, and he's used it to kind of catch the army coming on over. It's better than nothing. Any delay whatsoever you can find. Any little pokes and prods you can find. But at the end of the day, the full might of the Zerg army is about to collapse in on SKillous. Can he be Durable enough. That's a surround right there. Blink's going to be blinking back into the awaiting arms of +1 melee Ling. Shield by overcharge hardly seems to affect anything. Is taken out of the equation anyway. Where the hell did all those stalkers go? He just disappeared in a blink of an eye. Those upgraded Lings still helping out as well. Oracle's trying to help too. So far avoiding the queens, which are just here for almost moral support. You can't transfuse. But they are helping. Oh, they're helping. And this is going to be game over. Reynor with the 3-0. Supercharged, hatchery-based push. Thanks to that gold base. I think SKillous had definitely the idea that he was going to be attacked. And then he was even proactive about trying to scout for it and get ahead of it. But I think his actual... This is game over, but I feel like SKillous actually had the correct things to defend, which makes this a really painful loss. But I actually think that he had enough to defend. But I think he, by being on the fronts... The 3-0 anyway. Yeah, he gets himself into this position, so he's trying to tackle this while being able to safely blink backwards, but then Reynor had this potential either run by if the stalker wasn't there. Which they like, for a second were thinking of run buying. We're like, nope, never mind, go for the surround. And the surround is very potent. The stalkers are already blinking reflexively, so they also don't all have blink at the same time to then blink in a group. Because I think if they blink in a group, if this happened and all these guys had blink and he went, oh shit, I think he blinks everything back here into Little Sim City. And then the stalkers are really not getting nibbled on nearly as much. The Oracle can actually free fire on some of these units as the queens are so slowly walking their asses over. But this, yeah, I mean, you know, so many stalkers not even shooting. The Ling's getting real surrounds on a lot of these stalkers. Yeah, I really think that's what did it. Because otherwise, I think SKillous actually was totally prepared for this. Good amount of stalkers, building oracles once again, shield battery aplenty. That makes it a more painful loss, though. That sucks. Jeez. GG's. Reynor looking to improve before EWC. For him, it's not just winning tournaments like these open cups, which are smaller, although still competitive. I'd say for him, it's about increasing the amounts of victory that he gets every single time. If there was a way to get victory points, he would be trying to get all of them. He'd be trying to end the games as fast as possible in 3-0 fashion every single time. Prove that he is dominating before he hands over to EWC.